Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics, and it is Monday, March 15th, the Ides of March. And fortunately, what else would you rather be doing on the Ides of March, Andrew, than talking silver, right?
Oh, it's great to be here with you. My goodness, first time listener, long time caller. So here I am.
Ah, wow. Well, first of all, this is Andrew Pollard of what used to be known as BlackRock Gold and is now BlackRock Silver, which hopefully you'll tell us a bit more about at some point during our call today. Although I will say thank you for that kind words because I was a big sports radio fan early on when I was growing up, and especially when I had jobs or would be driving around. Just love sports radio, where there's a long time listener, first time caller, and that's a lot of what I modeled what we're doing here after. Where you mean, yeah, it's like silver will go when it goes, but it's such an interesting topic where if you just relax the need of needing to know what's going to happen tomorrow, but just discuss in a fun way, let people share their views and their opinions. There's so many people with exciting backgrounds like yourself that have a lot of insight to share. And investing maybe it can be one of those things where you prepare for a long time and then the big moment comes and all that preparation does come in handy. So with that said, Andrew, could you tell people just a quick bit about your background so they have some idea of your experience? We may take some questions as well, if that's all right with you. And we can dig into mining stocks and get into BlackRock and anything else that comes up.
Sure, sure. So I've been the CEO of BlackRock, formerly Gold, as of this morning, BlackRock Silver. So not only is this my first time on the show, but this is the first interview we've ever done under the new brand. And that's because we've got a serious monster by the tail on the back of a recent discovery we made in Nevada, or as it used to, well, as it's still known as the Silver State. But my background before I joined BlackRock was I used to put together management teams for mining companies for a living. So I ran a boutique executive search firm for the last 17 years, where my only job was focused on helping companies ensure that the right people were behind the right projects. And I worked with everyone across the industry, from pre-IPO exploration companies all the way up to BHP Billiton. And I was putting together boards, management teams, and I started making investments along the way because I like to take positions in the companies I work with and really get a feel for their success. Um, BlackRock was a unique situation in the sense that I came to the company originally as an investor, about 3 years ago, and it was probably my single largest investment I ever made. And it was a situation where the headhunter became so myopic about the project that they had that he didn't really look at the team that was involved, and ended up with a lot of egg on my face. It was a point where I was so excited about the potential of this company, 3 years ago, and I started telling my clients about it, and they'd never seen me so enthusiastic about an opportunity either. So I got a lot of them to follow me in, and they cut checks into this company too. And well, anytime good projects get broken by bad teams all the time. And that was the case there. So, when I started writing checks into the company in 2018, 2019, the stock was at 10, 15 cents. By May of 2019, it had tanked all the way down to 3 cents, if there was a bid at all. It was trading at about $1 million market cap, Canadian, which is about what you could get a studio apartment for in Vancouver. But I knew the potential was there. It just needed some tweaks. So what I did was I made the board of directors a bit of an offer they couldn't refuse. I said, you know what, I'm willing to take on all the risk here. I'm going to step in and I'm going to do what I do best. And that was just, making some strategic plays from a corporate side. I completely changed out the board. I stepped in as CEO. Originally, it was just going to be on an interim basis, but it was evident that early on we captured a bit of lightning in a bottle. And I just started building a team that I thought was worthy of the projects we had. And then, about a year ago, we picked up this consolidation of one of the largest silver districts in all of North America, called the Tonopah Silver District. And that's when we really, came out of nowhere. We, as I said, we started at 3 cents. We hit 161 Canadian on July 31st. So it's been a hell of a ride. And now what we're doing is we're just walking it forward. We've got 40,000 meters of drilling laid out at our flagship property this year, and I think it's going to be a wild ride, but we're ready. I think I'm losing your audio here.
Whoops, sorry about that. I was saying, yes, it certainly does sound like you are ready. And for a lot of the people that might be new to silver and gold, especially to the mining stocks, with all the different things that you've learned through those positions, what advice would you give to people that are want to invest, but how do they do it in a good way? And again, this is not licensed financial investing information, but just you're sharing your experience that they can have some ideas to consider.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, my entire business for 17 years before I started, putting everything I knew to work, was predicated on one thing, and that's that management matters. As I said before, good projects get broken by bad teams all the time. I mean, I've cleaned up so many messes. I was the guy that gets the call, if a board of directors was needing to look at switching out a CEO, and I was the guy that gets a call if a company was going to be turning the corner from, advanced exploration to development to this. And really, I mean, you need the skill set first. The success will come after that, and that's what happened with us. I mean, it was a few small tweaks to our corporate structure which changed everything. Because even before we got our hands on our Tonopah property, when I stepped in, it was 3 cents. 4 months later, we hit 37 cents on the back of, I think it was like 50 million shares traded. And that was the only change we made, was just shining a spotlight on the project we had at the time, and with the right team behind it, and people got excited. So, you really, it's no secret that, a handful of people provide the bulk of the results in any industry. I mean, Ross Beatty's Ross Beatty for a reason, right? Neil Whittier's Neil Whittier. There are certain people that if you can just follow along throughout their careers and get a handle on what they're doing and what they're looking at, you'll get to ride the ups and downs of the commodities. And I mean, a rising tide does raise all boats, but it's the people that are consistently, serially successful, and that's what I tried to bring to the table here, that are able to replicate it. It's not, once is an anomaly, twice is a trend. And, what we're trying to do here is not reinvent the wheel. It's just fall back on good people, let them do what they know how to do best, and tell the story as much as you can. So that's sort of what we're doing here. And that's what I've been burned by writing checks purely on the basis of a project, but I was able to clean it up by focusing on management. And I think that's what investors should look at too first, is management.
Yeah, I appreciate you mentioned that, because it's like we've seen in the last couple of decades almost the commoditization of everything. That there is a difference with people. It's like maybe it's easier for a lot of people to see in sports. It's like, all right, you have Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant on your basketball team. Those guys are probably gonna come out ahead. They have a higher skill level or ability. And it reminded me of something that happened. I forget where I was. I like taking my books and reading. I'm a little bit of a nerd, kind of socially awkward. So I'll go to a restaurant and read a book. And there was one day some guy was like mocking, like giggled and laughed at me because I had a book. And, I'm just thinking, all right, well, that's fine. But I mean, at least in whatever that area of knowledge is, I'm probably going to have an edge if I read the book and he's laughing at me for reading the book. So similar, like you said, with these management teams, it's like some people who are good at learning and calibrating the same traits that I find leads to success in any area or any industry. Shockingly enough, that applies to mining as well. And can you talk a little bit more about what those traits are? Like, let's say you went to a conference and there were 10 new silver stocks that people were pitching you on. What do you look for? What are the good qualities that really impress you? I mean, you talked about the management team. You can go deeper, but anything else or any?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can talk about what sort of attracted me to our project, because this time it was only a year ago that we picked up what has now become our flagship asset. And looking at something as an investor, buying someone's stock because of their project, and looking at from a corporate angle, which is what separates this project from this project and which one should we acquire. Those are the two same things, right? So what attracted me to this property was number one, the jurisdiction. Nevada, and I'm sure you've probably covered it already, is, the Fraser Institute just came out with their list of top mining jurisdictions on the planet a few weeks ago, and Nevada was number one. Number one's hard to beat, especially when, we knew that silver was going to be a good place to be, just because at the time, this time last year, it had been sold down all the way down to around $11 or $12. It was the all-time gold-silver ratio spread. I think it was 128-1 at the time. Yep. When something is completely just tossed out with the baby with the bathwater, that's normally the best time to start looking at doing things. So, I mean, we could not have picked up this property at a better time, but, from a jurisdiction point of view, yeah, number one, when you compare it to other, if you look at the top 10 silver jurisdictions on the planet, Mexico is number one by a country mile. Peru's number two. You've got China, you've got Russia, Bolivia. Mexico, in terms of investment attractiveness, was rated 43. You probably saw First Majestic just change their corporate slogan of who knows how long. It used to be called One Country, One Commodity. They had multiple properties in Mexico. Well, last Friday, they decided to change their mantra entirely, because they just acquired a large gold project in Nevada. They're not just a Mexican-focused silver producer anymore. They're in Nevada too, because why? You've got the Mexican government wanting all these royalties, the security situation there. You've got my goodness, it's you have to deal with infrastructure, you have to deal with all these things. So I think that with the COVID shutdown, so what we have is very special. I mean, knowing that Mexico is going to be, that's where all this production is, but companies that are active there are trying to offset their jurisdictional risk, is something really unique, because in Nevada, the silver state, I mean, we've got to be the most exciting silver prospect down there right now. We're going to be delivering a resource estimate this year, a maiden one. I think we're going to have a big target on our back soon, and that's why I wanted to pull the trigger on this. It was the jurisdiction, and then you want a project that will work in any price environment. So I wanted grades, because there's lots of, bulky copper, lead, zinc mines that are not economic at these levels with a bit of a silver credit that may come online. But, the thing that stood out for us with our Tonopah property was the grades. Historically, it produced at 2.1 kilograms per ton silver equivalent. Those are some pretty serious eye-watering grades there. So I knew if we could replicate what historically the miners had seen down there, and with this jurisdictional advantage that we have, we'd have something pretty compelling. So jurisdiction, high grade, the low grade stuff seems to be, out of favor for the past 10 years or so. So, grade and jurisdiction, number one and number two, in my perspective.
Yeah. And Andrew, would you say it's completely unrelated that conceivably, if you let some guy from a YouTube Silver Show come do a site visit one day, that it looks like you could even swing right down there and be in a celebratory poker tournament later on by the evening? What would you say about
there's
that?
Casinos, literally, there's a casino right in town. Tonopah, the town of Tonopah was built there because of this big discovery, and it was discovered in 1900, right as the Comstock lode had petered out. So, the Comstock lode is said to have created the state of Nevada. It was that deposit which caused a massive influx of people, and the Comstock discovery actually helped finance the American Civil War. But it was Tonopah that kept it a state, because between, say, 1880 and 1900, over 2/3 of the population of Nevada had left the state. It was really just cattle ranchers there remaining. But it was the discovery in Tonopah, which to this day was one of the most significant precious metals discoveries in Nevada's history, not only for the silver endowment it found, but because it led to some other massive discoveries nearby, like Goldfields. Goldfields became the largest city in Nevada during the early 1900s, and it was because of Tonopah. So, we're not only do we have the best of both worlds, we're the halfway mark between Vegas and Reno, and the highway comes right between our property. But if you don't want to go in the 3-hour drive either way, you can set up shop and play poker at any of the casinos in town too. So it's pretty good.
That is excellent news. And I do have my team designing a silver poker chip set, so we don't have to use that plastic or fiat crap. Andrew, when you're mentioning the jurisdictions there, I'm curious with just reminding me of California, where, you talk about how Nevada's #1. Is there anything that would make you more scared than California?
Well, I was listening to Rick Rule the other day, and he refers to California as the People's Republic of California, and I sort of get it. But Nevada, Nevada is a tried and true mining state, right? Like they did not shut a single mine down during COVID. It's an essential business down there. It's the lifeblood of Nevada, so they're not going to mess with a good thing. What's nice about our property versus other properties, even in Nevada, is that the vast majority of our project is on patented claims, meaning privately owned. So we don't have to deal with state government really. We don't have to deal with federal government. It's our property, so we can really fast track decisions when it comes to permitting, when it comes to just working it. So that's one thing. Even though Nevada is a pro mining state to begin with, even the fact that we're not dealing with the Bureau of Land Management, but our own land is even better. But I don't even think when you compare California to Nevada, I don't even think California made the top 100 jurisdictions, right? So it's sort of apples to fish comparison. Nevada contributes, I think 80% of the gold production for. It's, if Nevada were a country, it would be the 5th largest gold producing country on the planet, right? So we're a good place to be. But it's the 100-to-1 silver gold ratio that Tonopah is known for that makes it really, really special. Because even the Comstock lode, which was bigger, didn't even have that silver to gold ratio. I mean, 100-to-1 makes us a pure play silver gold district, when most of the worldwide production of silver is a byproduct of lead or zinc or these big bulky copper mines, which are not going to be scaling up if silver gets to 50 or 100 or $150, but we sure can. So I wouldn't want to be working anywhere else but Nevada. I've been blessed to, this is my first time in the CEO suite, running a public company, and it was the jurisdiction that certainly saved me a lot of headaches.
Yeah, I can imagine, and it's just incredible how in the same country, how two states could be at such polar opposites. And part of the reason I asked that is that, let's say hypothetically at some point, whatever happens with the dollar, and then you have California, which, it doesn't seem like their finances are any better, which I was thinking about over the weekend, because I went out on Saturday night for a bit at someone's birthday party, and there were two people who were real estate agents here in Austin, Texas. And they were telling me they just had a house go for $300,000 over listing price.
Yeah.
I was like, the bubble here hasn't slowed down at all. And they make it sound like there is a mass exodus of people leaving California right now. So again, this is all hypothetical, but let's say for whatever reason, at some point, California went bankrupt and they were forced to relax the mining laws. I would think with the way that they've scared anybody away, if you ever, for whatever reason, I would imagine there are a lot of good projects there that nobody's been able to touch. If you ever had a Nevada-like policy in California, would that be like the next gold? That'd be like the 1850s again? Is that?
There's, that would require more than. I think in California it's going to take more than a budget to sort of change opinions on the mining industry as a whole, and I don't know. I think that the question is not why are people leaving California now, especially people with means. I mean, Joe Rogan just set up shop in Austin, and Ben Shapiro just went to Florida, and you're seeing mass exodus of people from New York and California because, why stay? If taxes are only going to continue to rise and the quality of life is only going to get worse and worse. I mean, sure, the weather's nice, but the weather's nice in Austin. The weather's nice in Miami. The weather's nice in plenty of places that aren't going to penalize you for wanting to contribute to an economy. Yeah, the opportunity in California, should they bring in a pro-mining policies, would be astronomical, and I'm sure you would see a lot more companies feel happier investing in there. But for the time being, there's a few companies that are doing really well there, but it's they're not really open for business. Certainly not within a mining context, from my point of view.
Yeah, well, it will be interesting to see how this all shakes out. I think we're going to see some big changes in a lot of things of finance. Although, with that said, I will mention Andrew. Are you able to take a couple of questions? Anything that you have to be careful how you answer, you can pass on. But would you like to take a couple questions from the audience?
Throw them at me. Let's see what we can do here.
All right. So start typing in. Can be about BlackRock Gold, which is now known as BlackRock Silver. Actually, Andrew, that would be. I'll take the first question, and then Manny, you're up next. But what was behind the name change?
Well, I'd like to say it was the torrent of emails that I've been getting pretty much ever since we started hitting it out of the park with our drilling last summer. But it was really the Fraser Institute rankings that really showed that we've got something really special. I mean, from an institutional point of view, I mean, the analysts would follow us regardless of what our name is, whether we're BlackRock Gold, BlackRock Silver, BlackRock Ventures. We've got something very, very special on our hands because we've been putting out world-class numbers in the heart of Nevada. But it was the Fraser Institute rankings that really showed that, when you're looking at all the other silver jurisdictions globally, and then you look at how Nevada ranks to them all, we've got something really, really special here. Because as I said, Mexico, number 42 on the list, Peru, number 34, Bolivia, I don't even think made the top 100. Having a high grade silver gold district in the heart of Nevada, 100-to-1 silver gold ratio, made me really think that, in Nevada, as a gold company, we could be a dime a dozen, even though, I mean, we're hitting great gold numbers too. We've hit up to 26 grams per ton gold in some of our drilling. But having this as a silver dominant project in the heart of Nevada, and being a silver focused company, will really help the market understand just how truly unique and special it is. And when you got something that differentiates you from the vast majority of the companies that pretend to be silver companies, then yeah, why not lean into it? So that's why I wanted to push forward with the name change. When you've got positive attributes, compared to everyone else, you may as well leverage them as best as you can.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously you want to be if you could have gold in the name, but if you can have silver, why not? So Manny says, how do you feel about streaming and royalty stocks?
Yeah, I mean, listen, they're a great way to I mean, Franco-Nevada's, been a household name for 20, 30 years, right? You're seeing a lot of competition amongst the royalty and streamers right now because so many companies have jumped into the fray, and there's just not that many great projects. So I know a lot of them are having a tough time figuring out, where to place their money. But a lot, they are a great sort of way to, I guess, buy a basket of cash flowing investments and potential upside moving forward. I mean, even a royalty stock that really helped put our project together was a company called Illegal Royalties, and they're Nevada sort of focused. And what they did was they not only buy existing royalties on projects, but they go about consolidating districts. And with what we're doing in Tonopah, the exploration's all well and good, but it was the consolidation of all of these patented claims, which was the secret sauce behind what we're doing. I mean, no one has been in and drilled into many of the historic mines on a property since 1930 when production shut down because it was so piecemeal owned. I mean, all these private claims were owned and passed down generationally for about 100 years, but it was this royalty company that did the hard yards and consolidated the district over many, many, many years. And when they finally brought enough of these claims together and served it up to us and said, would you like to do a deal? We signed immediately. And it was that consolidation which has now really brought fresh life back to this historic district. And it wouldn't have happened without this royalty company. So yeah, no, I really do like the space. I like being tied to the actual projects better. I think that obviously there is more risk, but the upside with us is well, potentially geometric if we keep delivering what we're delivering. So it's good to have a sort of a safe play and get exposure to the industry, and a rising tide will obviously make those royalties worth more and more. But if you really want that volatility, and the volatility is where you make your money, you buy very high potential projects with a clear path forward. And that's well, that's why we're not a royalty company, but advanced exploration one.
Well, I appreciate that. We have a question here about what the ticker symbol is.
Yep.
And I'll pull up the investor page. Maybe you could just let folks on the different exchanges know what they want to look for.
Yeah, so we're traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol BRC, and we're also on the OTC QB, I think it is, under the symbol BKRRF. So BRC in Canada, BKRRF in the States. We also have a Frankfurt listing, I'm told. If you're courageous enough, give that one a try and let me know how that works. But that's AHZ over there. We actually do fairly good volume over there. So, we do really, really good volume over in stateside and in Canada. And having a pure play, silver gold district in America, something very special. And I think we're going to be focusing a lot of our attention on really standing out down in the U.S. Our executive chairman, Bill Howell, he used to be head of exploration for Placer Dome, which was one of the largest mining companies in the planet up until they were taken over by Barrick for $10 billion US in 2005. But he lives down in Reno, and he's one hell of a guy. So 90% of our company, 90% of our workforce is down in Tonopah and Reno, and really I'm sort of the Canadian lone wolf up here. So
yeah, Andrew, and looks like investors seem to like the new name change today, up 7% or 7 cents, which is 9.72%. So congratulations. I mean, I don't know, maybe silver has that effect when
it's, as I said, for the institutions, the name doesn't really matter, but it's just such an exciting time within the silver space. I mean, you've got this whole retail narrative and the silver squeeze narrative, and a whole new class of investors coming in. The millennials are getting excited about it, like, my goodness. But then you've got the double whammy is, the whole decarbonization movement, the solar panels and the EV cars, which take up significantly more silver, just because of all the electrical components there. And it's sort of a perfect storm. And having a really exciting high-grade silver discovery in Nevada right now, I think it's just something that, I want to really turn up the attention to what we're doing down there, because why not? It's an idea whose time has come.
Well, I agree. And in terms of attention, we do have a bunch of questions coming in now, so I'll try and keep them short, and we can go through as many as you can. Andrew, are you scared of being run out of a country or having strong regulations put against you? You touched on that a little bit and why you like Nevada, but anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, actually not, because, as I said, not only is Nevada rated the single best mining jurisdiction on the planet right now, we're not looking at developing, big, environmentally sensitive open pit mines, which, a lot of the global silver production is relying upon. In Chile and Argentina, I mean, you've got things just tied up in purgatory right now, trying to get these big open pit bulk tonnage operations permitted. That's not what we're trying to do. In a best case scenario, we keep advancing this silver discovery forward. We're not going to be doing these big open pit, environmentally sensitive operations. This will be very small footprint targeted underground mines. So there won't be much in the way of surface disturbance, and having especially as the U.S. Pushes forward with a bit of whether they're going to do the new Green Deal or whether they're going to push forward with a scaled back version of that. Either way, every single thing they're looking at involves silver. Solar panels, electric cars, all that involves silver. It makes sense for them to want to get that silver from an American producer, and especially an environmentally sensitive one. So, not having to have a big bulky open pit mine, but working on private property and hopefully going underground and just taking out the high grade ore and processing that should be a very appealing proposition for the state and federal regulators if and when we get there. So I think we've got something very special on our hands down there.
Yeah, I guess if Joe wants to have his Green New Deal,
yeah,
he's going to have to let the silver come from somewhere, which
right.
ties in with Omega Angel's question. What are your proven silver reserves?
Yeah, well, that's exciting because we're working towards the maiden resource estimate on our property, but this is a property that it's a consolidation of the second largest silver district in all of Nevada, and Nevada is known as as the silver state because of the Comstock lode and because of our silver property, the Tonopah Silver District. So we have half of the silver district, and we're the first group to consolidate the entire western half of it. So there's multiple historic mines on our property, and back in the day when it was producing, they didn't do any drilling back then. They just mined these silver-rich veins right from surface. And all of these silver companies just followed these veins from outcropping at surface, and they followed them down in a long strike. So all the historic mining started on the east side of town, and it's an east-west trending district. So all of the production went westward. And when silver prices fell off a cliff in the mid-1920s, they were pegged at around $1 an ounce in 1923, and then precious metals prices fell down to 35 cents an ounce within about 4 years. It sent all of these big publicly traded mining companies belly up. And it was these groups that went in and bought them out of bankruptcy. They've tied them up for about 100 years. So we're the first group to go back into this district, consolidate our half, and start drilling into these historic mines. We knew a lot of the mines on our property, they did not stop mining because they thought they exhausted the reserves. They stopped mining because of low metals prices. So what we're doing now is, we put the first drill hole ever into our property in June of last year. We announced our result, and we hit about 30 meters of a kilogram per ton silver equivalent in drill hole number 1. And what was so exciting about that, and I think it might have still been the best intercept in all of Nevada last year in terms of gram meters, but what it was a proof of concept, and that proof of concept was simple. We said that they didn't stop mining because they ran out of ore. Well, guess what? We pointed the drill right around where we thought they would have stopped mining, and we hit this big, juicy, rich silver gold vein. So it opened things up. It created the narrative for the rest of the for the rest of our property. But what we're doing now is putting one foot in front of the other, and we're going to be delivering a maiden resource estimate by Q4 of this year. So we've gone from first drill hole ever onto our property in June of last year to having a maiden resource estimate that we think we can table certainly by the end of this year. But it's going to take a lot of drilling to get there. So we've got 4 drill rigs turning down at the property as we speak. We drilled 30,000 meters last year. We only set out to do a 7,500 meter maiden drill program when we started last year. We ended up drilling 30,000 meters between June and December. And then we didn't, other than the holidays, we haven't had to, retarget or anything. Like, our model's predictive at this point. So we're just keeping going. And once we get this resource estimate, that's going to be the single biggest deliverable this company's ever had, because that's when all the big boys can start taking us really, really seriously. I mean, people took that first drill hole seriously. It added about $100 million to our valuation overnight. It had Eric Sprott calling us the next day to offer us a $5 million investment. But it's tabling a resource, which is what all these other companies can then use to really start justifying potential takeouts and such. And as I said, with all of the silver production, the vast majority of it coming from Latin America, which is having a bit of a tough time now, and us tabling a resource estimate, a high grade one in Nevada, I think that's going to put a serious target on our backs, similar to just what First Majestic just did. So, yeah, so resource estimate coming soon.
And Andrew, it was interesting you mentioned there how you got the one drill hole and how much that raised the value of the company. Before we get back to the user questions, can you just touch on that from a human perspective, what that's like when you're waiting for the drill results? You don't really know. I mean, it's got to be pretty exciting, maybe a little nerve-wracking. Just what's that like?
Well, I mean, we sort of called it in the sense that we knew for this one target where we drilled hole number one, we knew all of the historic records, and these were historic records from very large publicly traded mining companies. In fact, one of the board of directors of this company, this former mining company that had it in the 1920s, was a guy named Charles Schwab. Like, it was a serious company, and the historic records indicated that where they stopped mining this one vein, it was the thickest vein in the district, and they stopped mining it because they encountered water. And where they stopped mining it was going to be 24 meters thick. That's what all of these documents said. So we told the market that, if this goes according to plan, we should hit something about 24 meters thick. And they didn't really class it. They called it good ore. That's how they classified it, in good grade ore. So we knew it was going to be a workable grade from a 1900s perspective, early 1900s perspective, and we knew the vein should be 24 meters thick. By golly, yeah, we hit something 29 meters thick and a kilogram per ton, and all of a sudden, Blackrock Silver was born. It was also the best of times and the worst of times, because if you remember what had happened in the market between, I guess, when COVID, everything hit the fan in March last year due to COVID and the shutdowns, everything got sold down, right? All the markets got sold off. Silver got sold down to 11 or 12 bucks. And then around April or May, things started to do a slow build. And they did a slow build all the way to August 1st. So we could not have hit our very first sort of drill hole at a better time, because that was the same week that gold hit $2,000 an ounce. And silver was kissing $30 that week too. So, man, it was perfect. Like, the market was as frothy as it was going to get. And then what happened after that? August, September, October, November. And it's just been a constant consolidation amongst all of these across the entire space. So it was exciting. But, the most important thing is we're not just a one drill hole wonder anymore. I mean, we've got multiple target areas that we're pushing forward. And by target areas, I mean historic mines that we're drilling into right now. In fact, the target that we're putting out our resource estimate is a different area than where we even hit hole one. So we've got so much juicy veins that we're drilling into. It's really like we're trying to drink from a fire hose in terms of where to focus first. But we want to table the best resource we can in this one area, which is called the DPB target. And while we continue to drill out that area known as Victor, where we hit that 29 meter zone 2, and that's what we're doing right now. So we got a couple drill rigs turning a DPB to deliver this maiden resource. We've got an RC rig, which is drilling new targets and trying to make new discoveries on a property too, because it's such a geologically wildly active area that, we keep discovering new veins that even the historic miners didn't know were there. We've got this resource coming out. We've got export scout drilling, I guess, to find new discoveries. And then we've got another drill rig living at this Victor zone. So it's not just one project. I mean, there's many mines built into this one consolidated area. It's a really cool opportunity down there.
All righty. Well, I appreciate that. And Andrew, I was wondering, would you be okay if we switch to a quick lightning round? You got a lot of questions here for you, and I want to get you back so you can find the silver for us. Although perhaps what I will do is, while we do that, I will leave your contact information up here at blackrocksilver.com. So if anybody wants more in-depth answers, you can email, you can call. And how does that sound to you, Andrew?
Yeah, sounds great. And anyone watching today can email me directly at andrew@blackrocksilver.com. So andrew@blackrocksilver.com.
All righty. And by the way, I think it's pretty slick. I checked this morning and it was still the Blackrock Gold site. And then this got rolled out. I love this. Is one of the coolest layouts. Feel
This is
like I'm
why I
in the
get paid the
old.
big bucks, Chris. It's
It's like I'm in the old silver saloon, and
well, you
so
know what's
like,
fun is, speaking of old silver, you know, Wyatt Earp actually ran a saloon on her property in the early 1900s. I mean, there were so many interesting historic figures that came through Tonopah. Wyatt Earp, Charles Schwab, Howard Hughes actually controlled a large part of the district in the 1960s. He actually got married down there, his second marriage. There's so much history about the Tonopah Silver District, but you know, it's, yeah, I really like the historic feel that we got going on here. And you know, you can go on Amazon right now and type in Tonopah, and you'll find a bunch of books, both fiction and nonfiction. Tonopah is known as it's the number one stargazing capital in the U.S. And apparently, it's also got the number one rated haunted house in the U.S. too. Sorry,
what?
haunted hotel. It's called the Mizpah Hotel. So that's pretty. There's lots going on down there,
Wow.
but it's sort of caught in that sort of 1900 sort of olden timey feel, but it's very cool.
Cool. Nibbles, pack your bags. We're driving to Vegas to play poker and see. In fact, I took Nibbles to a restaurant for dinner last night here in Austin that it's called the Tavern, which is known for Emily the Ghost, who hangs out on the second floor. I didn't get to
Yeah,
meet her yet, but it was interesting talking with some of the people there.
yeah.
So this sounds.
Yeah, the ghost in Tonopah is called the Lady in Red, and she's at the Mizpah
Ooh,
Hotel. And yeah, I
sounds
recommend
sexy.
you, if you can get there, I recommend you go spend a night.
Yeah, well, I've been it's like somewhere by minute 15 of our call today, I started like poker tournament in Vegas, like going through my brain. But I'll stay focused here. Let's hit up this lightning round there, Andrew. Vale says, are you going to produce silver pure or sell it to refineries? Are you
Well,
going
you
to
know
go
that,
into production, or what's the plan?
you know, if we table the resource that we think we're going to table, and we've got, you know, as I said, we've got about 30,000 meters of drilling completed, actually about 40,000 meter now, considering we've never stopped. And we're hitting it out of the park. I mean, we're our model in terms of where the veins are, and what the grades are, and just how much could be there. I mean, it looks like, you know, we'll table something, you know, between say 4 to 5 million tons, and we're averaging somewhere between 600 gram to a kilogram silver equivalent right now. If we table something like that in the resource estimate, I don't think we'd be the ones taking it to production. I mean, this would be truly something special. You know, what we're sort of looking like right now is, if you compare us to like Silvercrest, which is down in Mexico, and they're much larger, but their narrative is the same in the sense that they consolidated a historic silver district down in Mexico. They've got about 3 or 4 years of drilling in front of us, but the initial resource they put out a few years ago is roughly in line with what I think we're going to be putting out towards the end of this year. And they're a $1.5 billion company, Canadian. You know, right now we're 80 to 100 million market cap, depending on the days. So I think if we can put this resource out, we're going to have a serious target on our back. We're only about 15, or we're about 40 kilometers away from Kinross's Round Mountain mine. You've got the largest gold mining company on the planet, which is called Nevada Gold Mines, which is a joint venture between Newmont and Barrick, you know, in the state. You got Hecla in the state. You got Coeur Mining in the state, both silver-focused gold companies. And then you've got all these other companies like Pan American Silver and Fortuna, and everyone that's sort of tied down to Latin America, but you know, maybe wanting to look at offsetting some of their jurisdictional risk by getting their hands in other safe jurisdictions. Well, we get this. I find I have a tough time believing we'd be the ones to take it into production, but we certainly think that this will. We certainly think that the history books aren't yet closed on this district. I'll put it that way.
All righty. Well, that sounds good. And you may have answered the next question in there already, but one, maybe if you could add one sentence in that elevator pitch game that they taught us back in business school, what makes your company different from the rest?
Sure. Our best drill hole to date was 4.6 kilograms silver equivalent. So that had 26 grams gold and or just over 2 kilograms pure silver. Those are eye-watering numbers, right? The average historic As I mentioned, historically, the veins in this district produced between, say, 1900 and 1930, when production really shut down due to low metals prices, it was producing at over 2 kilograms silver equivalent. So I think from a pure silver basis, it was around 1,300 grams silver, grams per ton silver. That would place it in the top tier of high grade jurisdictions on the planet. It's in line with what Silvercrest has down in Mexico, but we're not in Mexico. We don't need security to get to the site. The only security in Tonopah is at the casinos. We're right next to a town. There's a highway that goes across our property. So it's the great high grade. This, should we keep pushing this forward, it's going to be a high margin. It should be a high margin producer at really any level, just because these grades are unheard of. It's not an optionality play. We're not waiting for $50 silver to come in line. We're a pure play 100-to-1 silver to gold ratio. So, which is incredibly rare. I mean, most silver companies actually aren't silver companies. They're zinc companies or copper companies or polymetallic, and they might have just slightly higher silver credit than they get for their lead or zinc, so they call themselves silver. We're pure silver gold, baby, and we're in the silver state. So we keep putting one foot in front of the other and delivering the assays like we have been hitting so far, and this will be very, very unique within the silver and gold sphere.
Well, that sounds good. We certainly need some good silver projects with the way the market is heading. You mentioned silver and gold. What's the silver to gold ratio coming out of the ground? Not sure if he meant for as a whole or for your project. Maybe give a quick answer on both.
Yeah, it's all of the historic records indicated that the district averaged out at 100-to-1. So it produced between say 1900 and 1930, it produced roughly 174 million ounces of silver and 1.86 million ounces of gold, but at ultra high grades. And it's interesting that, but as soon as we started connecting with our drill holes, I mean, that's roughly what we're seeing in pretty much everything. We tend to, when we get assays back, we tend to get the gold values back first, and then it takes a few extra days to get the silver numbers. And generally when I get the gold numbers back, I just have to times it by 100, and that's the silver equivalent. And it's pretty much rule of thumb. It always seems to work out about 100-to-1. So those are very, I mean, this is very, very unique within the silver space to get something so silver dominant. When roughly I'd say about 69% of all silver production comes as a byproduct of base metals. So to have a silver gold district is unique enough, but to have one at 100-to-1 silver gold ratio, there's very, very, very few places on earth that has anything like this. So that's very special.
Yeah, I would agree. And nice comment here from Patriot Zero, who says, "Thank you, Chris, for what you do." Certainly, I appreciate that. Although I would like to say thank you to Patriot Zero. Thank you to everyone who watches. Thank you, Andrew. I mean, I feel incredibly blessed. I mean, I went through a decade of knowing this stuff, and I'm like, how do you make a living out of explaining that the dollar is a Ponzi scheme? Yet the way this is all developed, maybe some other day I'll tell this story of how, like, even as of last year, we didn't know we'd be able to continue this, but it's the most incredible thing I've ever been able to be a part of, where it's like, we're doing a service for the companies that want to get their message out and the people that understand what's happening in the market and want information, and just balancing that all. So everyone plays a role in this. And especially for me, and I think a lot of the other people that get into silver, they're so passionate because it's not just silver, but what it does stand for in terms of sound money, a control on government, something honest. So I would say thank you to Patriot Zero and everybody else who helps bring the show in any way or is a part of it, including you, Andrew. So thank you, sir.
Yeah. Well, thank you. When silver goes, it's going to go. I think, what we're seeing right now is just such a coiling of a spring, and you can only hold it down for so long. But once it sort of hits a critical threshold, and whether it's $30 or who knows what's going to take to get there, but I think it's just going to go forward. And when it does, I mean, yeah, I think I'm ready. But money's still going to flow to the quality stories, and it's going to go down to grade and jurisdiction and obviously size. And I think we check all those boxes. So I really appreciate being a part of this today and getting on hopefully some new radars, but hopefully providing an update for many of the longer term investors too. But this is very much the beginning, not the end for us. We only just started drilling this less than a year ago, and our eyes just keep getting bigger and bigger on the potential size here. So hopefully there's some value here today, and look forward to connecting with you again in the future.
Yeah. And why don't we take one or two more here? Cool Breeze asks, what is the all-in sustaining cost at Tonopah West? And also, how many years to production?
Yeah, so it's too premature for us to have any sort of production figures on this. What we know is that, they at the depths that we're drilling, I mean, from an underground mining perspective, it would hardly be considered deep in terms of an underground mining scenario. So we wouldn't see too much anything surprising there. Really, our focus right now is just building up as big of a high grade and sizable resources we can over the next year or two. And once we table this resource, probably at some point this year, that's going to give us the justification to open up things underground and start teeing off at these veins right at their face. Because right now we're drilling from surface, and we have to get through a lot of rock before we get to the zones where we're targeting. So when we can table this resource, it's going to allow us to look at either driving our own declines and getting underground and teeing off down there, or opening things up at the historic mine shafts on a property, of which there's over 55 kilometers of, and getting under there. And once you're underground, things happen very quickly. I mean, you can start looking at doing bulk samples and metallurgy and stuff, and things can happen very, very quickly. But as it stands right now, our focus is purely just on showing the market just how big this. If 2020 was about making the discovery and sort of getting on the radar, 2021 is going to be about showing the market just how big these historic mines on our property can be. How much did these miners leave for us? And that's what we're focused this year on. So, but at these grades, I expect it should be a very high margin operation if and when we get there. I don't think it will be us that's going to be the ones taking this to production. I think we'd get taken out far before that. But right now we're just acting as if we're doing everything we need to advance it forward.
Well, Andrew, I appreciate that. And quite astutely, there was one other question about the drill program, but I think you answered that as well. So I'm going to let you get back to going and keeping everything on track there. Can't thank you enough for joining me today and sharing everything that you shared. For everybody who did not get their question answered on today's call or has follow-up questions, there is the number again. Andrew, perhaps you could give your email address again and any parting thoughts before we wrap up here.
Yeah, no, the timing's great. I'm happy. This is the first interview we've done as Blackrock Silver. We've got assays pending from both of our projects right now, and I expect that we should have some stuff, more drill results back from Tonopah very, very, very soon. So if you like what you hear, I mean, now's a good time, I think, to look at establishing a position. I'm not sure when they'll be out, but very, very, I'd say imminent. Other than that, yeah, feel free to reach out to me at andrew@blackrocksilver.com. So andrew@blackrocksilver.com. And it's, hopefully we'll get a chance to circle back once we've got some more developments to chat on, but it was a great hour with you.
Well, I sure appreciate that. I had been hearing about you guys for a while, and then appreciate Daniel on your staff reached out, and it was nice. I checked in, as I'll mention again, that before I bring any company on here, I'm not David Morgan. I don't pretend to be that I can analyze all these companies perfectly with a crystal ball, but I always do check that someone that I know and trust has at least some vetted the management, that they're honest people running a good program. I mean, some of the exploration stocks, there are risks, but got some great feedback on you guys. So I appreciate you coming by, making some time, talking BlackRock, also giving a lot of just good advice about mining stocks and silver in general. So Andrew, thank you. Congratulations on the new name change. I'm a big fan here. I'm going to go pack Nibble's dog bones up and get on driving out to the project. And I'll look forward to playing poker with you out there soon one of these days.
That sounds awesome. I can't wait. Thanks very much.
All right. Thank you. And again, BlackRock Silver now, everybody. And with that said, we're going to wrap up here for today, but I will see you again soon.